So we went in and found some pretty enticing buy low offers for everybody ahead of week 10, but I'll definitely say this right now. If you have a team that is under 500, you are 100% in the buyer's market at the moment. Pay extra attention to this video. We can start with Brock Purdy at the QB position. This guy went from being one of the most loving coming of age stories in the NFL to being hated all over NFL media, really. People are saying he's holding the 49ers back. They're all selling on the 49ers stock as a team in general. Whatever. All right, let's chill out because for starters, this man in Brock Purdy is one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks out there. With the exception of one horrible performance, Purdy is actually rather predictable relative to the rest of the league. He has cleared his projected total on 5 occasions in 8 tries and has stuck near the line in all but 1 week. His supporting cast is still nuts. Let's not forget about that. And let's start with his protection. Purdy is 27th in the NFL in sacks. He has only been sacked 14 times across 8 contests. Do the math. That's less than twice a game. He has the best pass-catching back in the league right now in Christian McCaffrey as well. McCaffrey is averaging nearly 5 targets per contest and has 4 of Purdy's 12 passing touchdowns through the air. So an easy check down option for sure. And Brandon Ayuk is on track for a career year while having the bye week to rest from recent injuries. I will be transparent, the fantasy football ceiling for Brock Purdy is lower than some. Keep in mind, he's on a team that runs the ball more often than 30 NFL teams, and the Ravens barely have them beat. They're dang near dead last in passing offense in terms of frequency. However, that ceiling is slightly elevated by the remaining strength of schedule. If we look here according to Fantasy Pros, Purdy has the 6th easiest remaining schedule in the league. Swoop in and get him while people continue to panic over the 49ers' 3-game losing streak. Justin Fields will be a bit harder to get, but owners' confidence always drops a bit during an injury, so let's consider that. The fact of the matter is that if you can get somebody with the rushing upside that Fields has ahead of your fantasy playoffs, you are golden. Even with the recent injury, the guy leads all quarterbacks in rushing yards since the start of the 2022 regular season. The part that was impressing a lot of people before this injury, though, was his passing upside in 2023. Fields finally surpassed 300 yards through the air for the first time in his career, and then he nearly had a repeat performance just a week later against the Commanders. Yes, I understand he did these things against 2 of the worst secondaries in the NFL in Denver and Washington, and that's why I'm hoping you didn't already buy Justin Fields stock ahead of the injury. In fact, I wouldn't hate if you waited until Friday morning to try and buy in on Fields in case he plays, because the circumstances he might be facing in this week are anything but optimal. He's facing a Panthers team that is allowing the 4th least amount of passing yards per game. And game script wise, I don't know how much Justin Fields will really be airing the ball out. The Bears are favorites for once this year. That doesn't happen very often. And if they get out and ahead of this depleted Panthers squad, I would not doubt if they go back to their roots and hand it off to a relatively efficient running back core in Roschon Johnson and D'Onta Foreman at the moment. Just game script-wise, if they're ahead, it makes sense. Tony Pollard is in a frustrating situation at the moment. It's as simple as that. And that can be reflected by the fact that, and I've never seen this before, he has the Fantasy Pros writers flat out saying that they are sad. Pollard has been completely healthy and on the 3rd highest scoring team in the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys up to this point. He is 2nd in the league among running backs in red zone touches. And despite all of that, he hasn't found the freaking end zone since week 1. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd finally broken the curse when he lunged into the end zone yesterday against the Eagles, but the play got called back on an illegal formation. So why am I telling you to buy Pollard? This guy literally has some of the worst luck in the league, and everything is pointing towards him getting into the end zone, getting better fantasy performances. And despite all of that, the guy is still the running back 19 in fantasy PPR and has multiple receptions in all but 1 game. Pollard is averaging 4 yards per carry flat, middle of the road. Even though that's nothing compared to the efficiency we saw from him last year, it's not bad. And right now, there are so many fantasy owners frustrated with the lack of scoring in recent performances. Tony Pollard's value is phenomenal right now. Go capitalize. We'll stay in the division, and for those of you looking to tap into an elite level talent at the running back position and really take a home run swing, I see some opportunity here with Swift. The Eagles run the ball more often than all but just 3 teams in the NFL at the moment, so the opportunity is obviously there. I'm not here to try and convince you that Swift's value is astronomically low and that you're going to get him at a phenomenal discount. But with 2 performances of under 12 points in the last 3 weeks on the table, it's fair to say he's at a bit of a discount at the very least. Swift is coming off of a matchup against a dominant Dallas front 7 led by Micah Parsons, and it's not like the Eagles shied away from him. That's the most prominent point I want to highlight here. He had his 3rd game this season with at least 20 touches. The guy is 5th in the NFL in rushing attempts at 135, and he beats 3 of the 4 names above him in yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey is the one exception. I think we'll give DeAndre Swift the pass there. Swift is 7th among running backs in targets. He's among the top ranks in terms of yards before contact, thanks to that ridiculous offensive line. He has a week 10 bye, and then it's time for him to gear up and play teams like the Seahawks, the Giants, and the Cardinals, not just in the future, but during your fantasy playoffs. It's not too early to start thinking about that. Antonio Gibson's up next, and it's more of a buy and stash. But if we let this thing marinate, this is somebody in Gibson who could become a clutch contributor around your fantasy playoffs. As a matter of fact, there's a possibility you don't even need to trade for Antonio Gibson if you grab him right now. Literally, pause the video and get him right now. He could very well be available as a free agent in 10 and 12 team leagues. So why do we like him? For starters, the man in front of him on the depth chart is not efficient at all. Now, gone are the days where I say Brian Robinson Jr. is not a great fantasy running back, all right? He's getting the volume and touchdowns, although that's really not sustainable, especially the touchdowns. He's at 6 total right now, and he's hanging around the top 15 running backs at the moment in standard PPR. What he is not is efficient. Antonio Gibson has the man beat by nearly a whole yard per carry. And sure, you can go and try and make the argument that they're just working off of each other, Gibson and Robinson Jr. But don't sit here and try and deny the fact that Gibson's getting more usage the last couple of weeks. We've got 7 and then a season high 11 touches this last week. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but Gibson is starting to dig into Robinson Jr.'s usage. And my favorite part of Gibson's game that we'll close on here, his receiving involvement. We have harped on the pass-heavy operation going on in Washington. We've even stressed that Sam Howell is honestly a really good buy-in right now due to the fact that Washington's defense is giving up so many points, and the offensive line has been forgettable. Well, newsflash, Antonio Gibson has a hand in that passing offense. He has 29 targets, including 10 over the course of the last 2 weeks. Gibson has caught all of those 10 targets, by the way. Keep an eye on this usage situation as the Commanders head into a matchup with a Seattle team that's among the bottom ranks when it comes to yards per carry allowed. Something is brewing here, and I suggest that you take advantage of it sooner than later. Cooper Kupp is next. I can sense the fantasy football owners' frustration with the situation going on with Cooper Kupp right now. Not only did owners have to wait a month for the man to even step on the field this year, but now we've got back-to-back weeks of subpar play for somebody who churned out 20-point performances like nobody's business not too long ago. This one is not rocket science to dissect. Matthew Stafford has been out, and while Brett Rippon was still targeting Kupp and attempting to get him involved as we see here, the two were not on the same page. Well, lucky for us buyers who are looking to make a splash and get somebody like Kupp at a discount, Stafford shouldn't be out too much longer. Here's a report saying that Matthew Stafford's thumb seems to be progressing. And oh yeah, the Rams do have a week 10 bye. So that gives the starting QB in LA a whole extra week to get to 100%. That way he can start converting on throws to Cooper Kupp again, feed him a ton, win, loss, or tie. And you can be happy knowing that you looked into my little crystal ball and got him before any of that unfolds. Another receiver who has been a victim of backup quarterback play is DJ Moore. Now, Tyson Bagent hasn't lacked confidence by any means. He's throwing it down the field, but Bagent has a different favorite. Cole Kmet has the targets, and most importantly, the red zone looks that DJ Moore was seeing more of when Justin Fields was out there. But DJ Moore is still showing that in a vacuum, he's one of the best receivers in the game. The man is 5th in the league in yards after catch, so he's capitalizing on a lot of those quick screens. His catchable ball rate is actually right around league average as well. And let's not forget that he's on a team in the Chicago Bears that has had a top 5 draft spot pretty much locked up since the season started. The Bears have lost and will lose a lot of games this year as a result. You'd hear me talk about game script all the time. You'll see this team throwing the ball a ton in the second half. We just have to wait a week or two longer until Fields comes back and feeds his favorite target. And if it's against the Panthers, look, I'm not one for storylines, but you'd like to think DJ Moore is going to get a decent amount of looks against his former team. Zay Flowers gave his fantasy owners a gut check this past weekend. Good luck finding a fantasy owner pleased with 1 catch on 1 target for 11 yards, and that's when you capitalize. The stat line may be concerning to some, but let's look at the context here and calm down. The Ravens absolutely blew the Seahawks out of the water, and as a result, they sat on their lead in the second half. Baltimore stuck to their identity as the most run-heavy team in the league, and they kept the ball on the ground. That's why Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell, which, by the way, go grab him if you can, stole headlines with phenomenal performances on the ground. Even Lamar Jackson and most of the starting unit checked out early. That's why, as you can see here, there's a slightly lower snaps percentage for Flowers from week 9. We have a consistent producer in this Ravens offense in Zay Flowers. We have somebody with a top 10 target share percentage at the moment. Look, I'm a firm believer that blowouts like this should be factored out altogether out of players' performances because in this case, the Ravens effectively phased the passing game out of the game plan as soon as they realized they had this game won and in the bag. And we wrap up with Dallas Goedert. Yes, I know the news, and I will say this. My take on Goedert is fully dependent on the extent of the injury he suffered against Dallas in week 9. No, it doesn't look great. I'm seeing that it's a fractured forearm, one that he had in the past, the same issue, and he's being evaluated at the time of this recording but there's a decent possibility he's out for 4 weeks. That makes him a stash option if, of course, you've got a reliable tight end option already. The Philly tight end has been among the top 12 in his position in fantasy PPR in 4 of the last 5 years, and he's been between 10 and 12, so really just good old reliable. Gonna get the job done. Heading into the week, he was 6th among tight ends in targets and has been a significant part of this Eagles passing game in each of the last few years. The value takes a significant dip if he is indeed on the IR. That's when you want to buy somebody if you know when they're going to be back. My advice is to take him in a package in case he isn't back until the tail end of the season. Stand strong on your deal because he is going to be out for an extended period of time. But hey, best case scenario, you have a solid option heading into the fantasy football playoffs should something happen to your other tight end. Thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to ask me any fantasy football related questions that you have in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we will see you in the next video.